Nexus. He does go down, but the minions are going to take it. He's got it.
With a population of just 5.7 million people, Denmark has forged some of the best League of Legends players in the West. Sven, Bjergsen, Froggen, these players stand among the multiple legends that have come out of Denmark. In fact, Denmark has produced more League of Legends players than any other European country. Since 2013, 208 players have graced the EU LCS stage. Over 10% of them are Danish. The Danes have shifted the landscape of the European LCS. 63.5% of all games have featured at least one Dane. For the past 3 years, every single final in Europe and North America has featured at least one Dane. And for Europe, this one is no exception.
Looking for the kill. One auto. The shield. Caps does it again.
We're going to start Milko at the end.
Oh, there it is. Style points to Brox.
Denmark, the European LCS is coming home.
And for the first time in history, the fourth consecutive EU LCS title. G2 Esports.
Misfits, the underdogs in this game. No one expected anything, but they hit hard.
Jankos, the first Blood King. Let's make this a clean fight.
Welcome everyone to the EU LCS Finals in Copenhagen, Denmark. Thousands of fans are showing up at the Royal Arena to watch the powerhouses G2 Esports and Fnatic fight for the title. This is the day that we've been waiting for, the entire split, and I'm very happy to be covering it. I'm Eva Schogsupporter, together with Jacob Yamato Cannon Mebdi, Jonas Colt Anderson, and Martin de Fischio Lunge. Yes, he's here. The Danes are at the analyst desk. We tried to get in as high possible concentration of Scandinavians at the desk. It's also a Swede, maybe unfortunately, but very happy to have you here. All right.
Whoa!
A bit of animosity straight off the bat. I like it. So you guys have spoke a couple of words in Danish already to the crowd before and yesterday, but I do want you to just welcome them again. Are you guys hyped for today for the Royal Arena?
Jonas, er du hyped?
Jeg er så klar. Er du klar?
Jeg er mega klar. Danmark, er I klar?
Love it. Well, the crowd's ready. We're ready. Yesterday we were ready as well. We saw a fantastic best of 5 for the third place decider between Splyce and Team Vitality. A very tense series, very intense overall, a full 5 games. In the end, Splyce was victorious, and it was a hard-fought one at that.
Yeah, I mean, the start of the series, we had like stomps. Vitality won the first one, Splyce took the second one. We saw a lot of great individual performances, but in the end, it felt like Splyce's late game was a little bit better, and they punished some big mistakes from Vitality.
Yeah, Niski really was the standout player of the series, consistently playing at a really high level, and he kind of carried Splyce in the series.
Yeah,
I like this one.
Yeah.
This one was good.
I feel like overall in playoffs, Niski has been the standout player for Splyce as a whole. We had a lot of trouble beating, of course, Niski, and from our perspective, I think it's a question of just performing better in best of 5s. I look back at our history against Fnatic, H2K, we underperformed there as well, but looking towards Summer Split, we are very excited to just improve on those flaws.
Yeah, it's a learning curve for Vitality. We will be very excited to see them in summer, but let's take a look at what that third place decider netted Splyce in the end. They are now the third team to qualify for Rift Rivals, together with G2 and Fnatic. They also get 50 championship points. Vitality picks up 30, and today there are 90 or 70 on the line. And a spot at MSI. So it's really all about that international experience.
Definitely, and I mean, me and Yamata have been there. At the end of the year, when you are qualifying for Worlds, you really, really need these points. So I can't stress it enough that these points are so important if you want to qualify for Worlds.
That is true. Yesterday was the third place decider, and just to make it clear, we're here in the pre-show, and in about 28 minutes, we'll go down to the stage to meet the players of Fnatic and G2. But first, we want to introduce everything, and we want to give some credit to the Danish fans. And yesterday, the Fish Show, you went out on the street, you went out and mingled amongst the fans and saw what they had to say. Let's take a look.
All right, first one is going to be in English. These guys are sadly not from Denmark. Where are you from?
Sweden.
Cut. Favorite moment of the EU LCS this split?
I mean, being here.
Nice.
That's yeah.
All right, she wins. Greatest Danish jungler ever.
Oh, Svenskeren, is he Danish?
He's Danish. He's called Svenskeren even though he's Danish. It doesn't make any sense. Which actually means the Swede, but that's what happens. That's what happened. Hvilken dansk spiller er den bedste nogensinde?
Ja, sådan Bjergsen fangirl. Sorry. Ja.
Det er også Bjergsen fangirl, så det jeg skal lige have 5 danske spillere. Kør, go.
Wonder, Caps, Bjergsen, Jensen og hvad den hedder, Jesses.
Og så skal du fortsætte.
Froggen. Ja, nu tog du mine. Ej, det er skidt. Svenskeren. Hvad fanden er det nu, han hedder? Ej, jeg er helt blank.
Hvem er MVP i finalen?
Det bliver Regulus.
Hvem er MVP for hele sæsonen?
Regulus.
Hvem er den bedste caster i hele verden?
Det er Fish Show.
Fedt. MVP of the final?
Wonder.
Det er Fish Show og Quickshot?
Quick Fish Show.
Hvad tror du egentlig finalen ender med?
Jeg tror, det bliver 3-1 eller 3-2 til Fnatic.
Fnatic og G2?
Obviously Fnatic. Fnatic.
Score?
3-2.
Fnatic. G2, of course.
Fnatic. Fnatic. G2. Fnatic.
G2.
I think Fnatic's gonna win. I hope so.
Yes.
Score?
3-0. Maybe I hope 3-2 because
More games.
that will be hype. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Enjoy the event.
Wonderful. A little bit of fan service. I think you may have a future in those on-the-street interviews and then getting opinions from
I mean, it was very fun. I got to talk to a lot of different people, a lot of different opinions, but I will say most of them towards Fnatic winning the final. So there's some fan favorites.
Yeah, it's true, and I think it's just a wonderful occasion. We also saw the video at the beginning, at the top, how many Danish players have actually graced the history of the EU LCS. So fantastic to have an event here. I think you agree, Cole.
I'm surprised you didn't mention me.
Yeah, nobody mentioned.
That's why I asked. That's why I asked about greatest Danish jungler. I was hoping someone would say his name.
Yeah, it's the name change. It's
sadly.
too difficult. It's too difficult. Well, in any case, as we get ready for tonight's action, we also have to highlight one player that stood above the rest during the regular season. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet our 2018 EU LCS Spring MVP.
Ruin. Look at the damage.
Cataclysm comes out as well, and Boxer and Reckless just go unstoppable there. Fnatic are going to try and chase on towards the rest of Giants. The double knockback with the never move, the knockup of Chaos. Guico coming in for a side as well. There's just nothing you can do. There's the triple kill. Reckless gets the quadra, going for the penta. What a way to cap it up. But no!
And here we go. Looking for selfie redemption, but I don't know if HTTP will be redeemed. The Emperor is Divide. Divide's absolutely nothing. It's a shutdown. Reckless trying to prove that he can make the plays too. A triple kill on the Xayah, and that might be it right now.
This is the payoff.
Now running in. Reckless 640 is going to try to kill Sanity. Is going to grab one back. Leads right back out. That's the double. Here comes the ace in the hole. Ignite the first blood. Peaky's getting caught out as well by Drops of Vanderstorm, but he's locked in place. The bindings connect. It's a double for Reckless. Picks up his kill. Now Blank cheats down Reckless. Oh, he's godlike. He's Savage, and he needs to hit the Nexus. And Reckless with the solo carry wins the game.
Reckless, congratulations on getting MVP for the second time in a row. What does it mean to you to win this title again?
The last time it wasn't that great, as everyone could probably see. So now that we're here in Denmark and we're about to play a finals, it feels much better. And I think I played much better this split as well. So it actually feels like my first real MVP award in a way. And I also know I tied Trick now as the second in a row. So maybe in summer I'll go for a third one and then break the history books.
We'll see about that. And you? You said it, in Paris it was a difficult time for you, but now you made it to finals after 2 years. What does it mean to you to be playing on this stage today?
Well, it's been a long time now since I played the finals, and like the last time it was in Sweden as well, so it's very special. And in a way, Denmark feels a bit like home. I recognize a lot of the people here, and there's a lot of Swedes here as well today. So it's just a great experience, and I think this is probably the first team as well that you can clearly say that I'm the leader in it as well. So it's a dream final for me, and I really want to make sure that I step it up today and bring home the trophy for us.
Well, you said it, many people are cheering for you today. Is there anything you would like to say to them?
Well, I don't know any Danish words, but thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be around for such a long time, and now that we're here again, I just want to bring my team forward and let them have some spotlight as well. We have 2 Danes in our team, so I really want to make sure that they get some love today as well.
Obviously. Above all, why is it so important for you to win this final today?
Well, first of all, I don't want to give Perks the pleasure of having 5 in a row, so it would be nice to take that away from him. But also, I don't really think I've had like that great of a legacy, really. Like, I've always played really well, but I've never really won that much in comparison to other players, so it would be nice to once again get a trophy home, another MVP award, and then for summer and maybe next year, once again just break the history books and become the first player to do it all.
Congratulations again, and good luck for today, obviously. Now back to you, Shaks.
Thank you very much. A wonderful MVP for the spring split. And even though you could argue for a couple of other players, I think that nobody can doubt this decision. This is a wonderful MVP who dominated the spring split.
I think it's 100% deserved. I think for the first time in a long time, I feel like all the critics that Reckless has ever had can be silenced. In the past 2 years ago, 3 years ago, he was the guy who cleaned up. He was the guy who just stood back and shot arrows or whatever, pressed silver ultimates. But now the critics are all silenced. Just look at the highlight reel.
Exactly, and I also love the fact that he's now a leader on this team. He really wanted to be a leader back in 2016. It was tough for him to transition into that role, but it's so different now. He's a lot older, and you can see how every player looks towards Reckless every time Fnatic plays.
Yeah, and the story of Reckless and Fnatic, they coincide because this is Fnatic's first final since summer 2015. It is 2 years in the making, and this is why this is such an important final and such an important moment, because this really is a project called that Fnatic has been working towards tirelessly for 2 years straight.
Definitely. Looking back at last year, we really wanted to have this final we have today. So I'm just happy we finally get this final, and I'm excited to see what kind of Fnatic show up today.
And it's always so interesting when you look at Fnatic as a brand, because they're the kind of team that needs to win every single time. Whenever they fail to make the final, it's a disappointing season. So now they've spent 2 years on rebuilding rosters, figuring out, okay, what kind of combination of players can work? What kind of coaches do we need for us to be the best team in Europe? And I think they've finally hit it with this lineup.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I also think it is a nice coincidence that the Danish players on that roster, like Caps, he is really peaking. He has had a great split again, and he's really developed and found his place as the second carry on that team.
For sure. I think if Reckless wasn't playing, then he was probably the one that deserves the MVP, because he carried a lot of games too. I think they solved a lot of issues that they had with playing with the jungler in the mid lane. And I think right now Fnatic is looking like a team with very little flaws.
They look like the team to beat. And well, as G2's coach, Youngbuck, he won 4 titles. But tonight he is on the other side. He is looking for his 5th title, but this time around with Fnatic. Let's get down to the stage with Laura. She's standing by with Youngbuck.
Hi everyone, Laure here, and I'm with Youngbuck before the grand final. Thank you very much for joining me today. This year, you're competing against the current champions. How does it feel?
I'm a lot more excited than usual because I'm playing against my old team with a new team, so I want to prove myself even more than usual. And on top of that, you know, it's me and Perks who's going to get that 5th title, and I really want to win it, and I really don't want him to win it today. So yeah, I feel way more excited than ever before.
You made many improvements with Fnatic over the split. What can you tell me about your players right now?
Right now we're in tip-top shape and we're ready to beat G2.
Any specifics or strategies you can tell me?
Well, we're expecting them to play through top lane, so we have prepared the ability to match that or to just completely shy away from that and put all our resources into the bot lane or mid lane.
And how is Bwipo feeling about this match?
He said a lot of wise words. He says the pressure is not on me to perform, but the pressure is on Wunder to perform, because if he does not perform well, then G2 is not going to win.
Well, thank you very much and good luck for today.
Good stuff. It's still weird to see Youngbuck in that Fnatic jersey, but he's doing well. And when I asked Perks and Reckless a couple of weeks ago, no, Caps and Reckless a couple of weeks ago in a post-game lobby, what makes a difference? Why is it that you guys are so strong? He said, it's all Joey. It's all Joey that's doing so well. So he must bring something to that team.
I actually had the pleasure of working with him in the past, and he's just a very, very calm guy that kind of collects everyone in a unit, and that is also what he's kind of brought to Fnatic, playing as a unit, not this like chaos style where they go for more individual plays. I know we hate that word.
It's true. But it's fair.
But I mean, he's really bringing Fnatic together, and that's what I think is his core value.
Yeah, he's creating systems so they know what to do in-game and can practice it. And then I think probably the most important thing for this Fnatic team is he becomes the person who can untilt the players if something should go wrong. Because Reckless always talks about how the last lineup, without Joey, if they lost the game, it was all over. Not anymore.
Now that's all gone.
I think team atmosphere is such an underrated value that some people can provide. I'm super happy for Youngbuck that he finally deserves the praise, or gets the praise he deserves, because in the past, I remember talking to GT, people looked at him, he's the chef of the team, the manager of the team. Now he's getting the praise he deserves. He has a 4th-time title for a reason, and he's aiming for 5th. I think he deserves all the praise he gets.
I agree, and how absolutely epic is it that he is up against his ex-team, G2 Esports. Those are the opponents of Fnatic today, and if G2 win, they win their 5th title in a row in Europe, putting them on par with Fnatic, who also hold 5 titles. And we just got to stand still for a second with the dominance that G2 Esports has had ever since they entered the EU LCS. They have won every single split, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like when G2 entered the ELCS, everything changed. Every team that was in the ELCS just played in the shadow of G2. It was about learning from G2 and getting better and catching up to G2 ever since they joined the LCS.
Yeah, we've not even seen a European team beat G2 in a playoff game. Like, that's actually insane. Over 2 years, they've been so consistent. We have to say, though, very much a different lineup now, because beforehand, we had players like Sven and Mithy that we could always rely on in these big moments. That is very changed now.
Definitely, and I think what impresses me the most is the fact that they completely rebuilt the team, and they're still in the final. They're still fighting for the championship, and that is a huge testament to the ability of the organization to put together a team.
And then we also have to talk about Perks in that mid lane. He is now in his 5th consecutive final. And let me ask you guys, is this the first time that G2 are underdogs in the final?
Yes.
Yes.
I felt like in the past when G2's rosters, when Sven and Mithy came in, and also when they had the new roster with Emperor and Trick and this entire combination, they started off with a bang, because they had the identity from the beginning, and it felt like this is the way they play and this is what you have to counteract. This year, I felt like that was lacking, that was missing.
And what you always could rely on from G2 is that they would always show up in the big games. Like Sven and Mithy, Trick, they would always show up in the best of 5s. And that's why we always praised G2 so much when it mattered in the EOS, yes.
I still think, though, looking at this G2 and how they played in the semi-final, they look good. Like, they shut down Splice really hard within Beat Vitality, of course, yesterday. So G2 can go in with a lot of confidence. I think if they can get someone like Wunder going, there is definitely a way for them to win.
There is definitely a way for them to win, and let's hope for 5 games. And there's one guy who's been there for all of it with G2 Esports, their founder, Ocelot. He's been around for all that success over the past years, and right now he is standing by with Law.
Hi everyone, Laure here, and I'm with Ocelot before the grand final. Thank you very much for joining me. We talked a few weeks ago. How are your players feeling today?
It's nice. Yesterday we had dinner together, and I saw that all of them had the eye of the tiger. From before the games, they're really ambitious and hungry and eager to play already. So that's the best sign they can give me. I'm pretty confident.
You must feel so proud. It's the 5th final in a row. What does it mean to you?
It means everything, and more importantly, it means so much because so many of these players, it's pretty much their first final, and I know what it means to them to come here for the first time and show the world that they can be the best European team, and it just means the world to me, really, because I've seen these guys from the moment they joined. I've seen these guys kind of grow into the people and team and players that they are today. and it just makes me so happy, to be honest.
And how fierce are they? What can we expect from them today?
I mean, they're G2. They're here to fight. They're here to win. That's the DNA of G2 Esports. We have zero intention not to win this game.
Well, thank you very much, and good luck, obviously.
There we go. Fantastic to hear from Ocelot saying, I really feel from him as we have Amazing joining us. I almost forgot to mention the Fisho is off to cast, so Amazing's going to weigh in on the deeper analysis. Let's put it that way. But fantastic to hear from Ocelot, and he really also feels like he wants to see all these players succeed.
For sure. I think with any interaction I had with Ocelot, when I played against him in the past, he was always the guy with the drive. It's infectious to the people around him, and I think it's evident in the brand that G2 is.
So we've gone over the stories, we've gone over everything these teams have achieved in the past, but now it is about the final. Let me just cheat and look. 9 minutes and 30 seconds until we get to the opening ceremony. So it's high time that we take a look at some key players in tonight's matchup. And we're going to start off with the AD carries, Reckless versus Yarnan. Battle of the Swedes. Now Reckless was just crowned MVP, and I want to know from my panel if there is a disparity and how big that disparity is between these AD carries.
So I definitely think that the bottom lane matchup in general is heavily favored for Fnatic. We saw Yarnan play better in the semi-final, was that because he was playing better, or was it because he played against weaker opponents? I think the second. So huge advantage for Fnatic in the bottom side, and I think that is kind of where their win condition is in the series overall.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the disparity is not as big as people may think? I know that we've been talking about this, and you think there might be something more to it.
Like having prepared for Fnatic, you can see one thing that is very evident about the bot lane is that what they pick and what they draft is very predictable. They have a very small champion pool, they like to pick it early on, and I think this is something that you can attack. Also, Hylissang, sometimes his creativity can bite him and bite him back, and I think this is something that you can watch out for. Maybe catch Hylissang, watch him in his play, and I think this is where you have to attack the bot lane of Fnatic.
Yeah, I think this predictability doesn't mean it's a weakness, though. I do think that the strength from Reckless comes within the fact that he's always able to play certain champions at a really, really high level. So basically influencing pick bans for the other team, forcing bans all the time. However, Yarnan has improved significantly, and I do think that in clutch moments, he actually steps up, and we saw it last week.
Yeah, we did. Someone who's been stepping up for G2 the entire split is Wonder in the top lane. We also heard the coach talking about that. Rather, this is going to be a huge win condition for G2, and he's Danish, so that'll help. And he's up versus Guipo. The wild card still on Fnatic.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're a G2 fan, you're definitely looking at the top lane. Wonder has been the best top laner in the league this season, and I think the fact that he can both play carries and tanks is a huge factor for G2 in their ability to win.
I think what's tricky for G2 is the fact that the meta is very shaped around the tanks. We see a lot of Sion, we see a lot of Cho'Gath and Ornn, and whenever Camille and Swain is out of the picture, so we have to watch out for those bans. Maybe Wonder's going to bring back his Gangplank, but I think when he's on the carry and he can bring the outplay potential, there's a win condition for G2 for sure.
Yeah, in this meta where yesterday we also saw a slugfest of tank versus tank for 5 hours, and as interesting as that may be, do we think that Wonder has the ability or will dare to pick the carry matchups and maybe less favorable matchups, knowing that he's up against someone who's not been on this stage before?
Yeah, I do think so. Like, if you go against a rookie, you kind of want to put him in a spot where he's uncomfortable, he doesn't know quite what to expect and what to do. So Wonder, as someone that's basically like proficient on carry champions, I do think that he's going to bring back those champions to just feel Guipo out and make him uncomfortable.
I think, like, if you look at our series against Fnatic, the one victory we had was when we played Camille into Cho'Gath and we really shut down Guipo. Akabosha had a 100 CS lead, and that made it rough for Fnatic, so I think that's the way in.
Yeah, and as Guipo said when we were talking to him, anything but Wonder crushing him is actually a loss for Wonder because Wonder should have the upper hand. We'll see how it goes in the games. A last matchup that I want to look at is in the mid lane, Caps versus Perks. This really is the crowning matchup of this final. Of course, Caps on his home turf, up versus Perks, the guy he has to take the trophy from if he wants to lift it today.
Definitely, and the question mark we had for Caps and this involves Brox as well, was their ability to play through mid. And I think they really shut down all the critics we had about it in the semi-final specifically. But on the other hand, we have Perks, and I think in the semi-final, he didn't really show anything special. And I think when you have a player like Perks, you need to enable him so he can be that standout player we know he can be.
Yeah, I still didn't think that he had to show up, though. I think Perks is someone that basically, like, they didn't revolve around, they didn't play around him. He just waits for that moment to basically come in and show that he's the player of King, where he's basically making the plays happen at some point in the playoffs. Whereas Cap, so far, when the pressure hasn't been on, he's been the one that has been performing really, really well. But we haven't seen like this like last step towards victory.
For Caps, you just want to see him go one step higher and have that playoff success.
Like, I'm just happy that Fnatic have finally identified their problem. For 2 years straight now, when they played with Caps, I always felt the issue that he was being left alone too often at the World Championship, previous splits as well. And now I felt like even in this regular split, they were exposed. I remember our games, we were playing Zach and we were catching Caps maybe 10 times. But now, when we played against them in the best of 5, all of a sudden they're dominating the 2v2 and it was very rough for us.
Very rough, and what I also thought was very entertaining is that there's a bit of revenge there. There is some harsh words on either side, and Caps, he didn't hold any punches in the EULCS postgame lobby. Last week, he had some very choice words going up against Perks.
I mean, obviously we are and we're reckless, but also just like we watched Splice versus G2, and I was seeing Nisqy get like 20-30 CS up in lane against Perks. So I really don't understand how he can be this cocky.
So you
actually,
are
it's really cocky for
frustrated.
someone who got super carried in the semifinals. But at the same time, I got carried too, so I'm trying to be quiet.
I love this, Caps. You were really tilted off Perks' words yesterday. You were so angry. So how is that going to translate onto the Rift? What are you going to do to Perks in Copenhagen?
I'm going to smash him so hard that he's going to think that it's an international tournament.
You know what? I've heard it 5 times already, but just the crowd in the Royal Arena going, ooh, is like the best thing ever.
I love it.
Why do you guys think that is, that there's so much animosity? Is that just from the side of Fnatic? They're just tired of seeing G2 and Perks win it all?
Yeah, I do think so. Honestly, like we can just accept Perks can be cocky. If you win 4 championships in a row, you have the rights to brag. And I do think that Nisqy actually stepping up in the semifinals, or now in the third place match 2, made Perks look a lot better too, because Nisqy is no one that you can just step over, and he definitely showed up too.
So the question is, we definitely think that Perks is still good and is going to be great in this matchup, but the 2v2, Broxa and Caps versus Jankos and Perks, how is that going to play out? Is there a difference there?
I think it's a question of jungle matchup. I think if Jankos is not on Olaf, I think it's going to be in favor of the Danes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and we kind of saw it in the semi-final that I feel like G2 kind of just left Perks alone, and I don't think you can do that against Fnatic, because then they will just take over the game. So a lot of pressure on Jankos from my side at least, because I think he's so crucial at making sure that G2 plays well.
I mean, also we can't forget that Jankos has never played a final, and there are these rumors from some years ago of him not showing up when it matters most. So for him, he's going to have to slay some demons. And does it really come down to the 2v2 of Perks and Jankos has to be better than we have seen, or they lose here today?
Yeah, I do think so. They have to be better, because when they came into the split, we kind of expected like this Jankos-Perks matchup to just dominate the USCS, and it hasn't shown up, it hasn't happened. So for them to actually like elevate their play is something that's necessary for G2 to even have winning conditions within the games.
All right, well, let's see. We have 2 minutes and 30 seconds until the opening ceremony. So it is high time that we dive into those all-important predictions for today's match. And you have a bit of time, Yamato. Who's going to win and why? Who's going to lift the trophy?
I think Fnatic's going to win. I think they're going to take it 3-1. They have the power of 2 Danes on their side as well. I think that helps a lot. I think in this case, I think Reckless is going to overpower them in bot lane. I think G2 bot lane only looked good because they played against the weaker Spice bot lane. And I think there's too much star power in Fnatic.
One Fnatic vote?
I mean, I kind of also think that Fnatic is going to win today. Initially, before Soaz got injured, I thought this series would go very, very favored towards Fnatic. But I think with people coming in, I think this series will be much closer than what we think. And I think Fnatic is going to win 3-2.
I still do think that Fnatic is the better team overall, but we cannot ever outrule like this X factor of Perks, because honestly, when he comes to that stage, he can always bring it. And I do think that it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect.
I think the beauty of all this is that on paper we all agree that Fnatic is the better team, but we all know that paper burns fast as well.
And it also is a kind of the tragedy maybe of Fnatic that they haven't been able to make it to that final stage in the previous years. I heard mumbles of amazing as well. Can they do it? Do they have what it takes in this iteration of the roster to make it? And then they have to surpass G2 to do it. G2 who holds 4 titles, 4 splits in a row they have won so far. I mean, just getting past Perks is a huge assignment.
If there ever were a time where Fnatic should win a final, this is it. So
for sure,
a lot on the line for them.
Yeah, a ton of the line. We are almost ready to get down to the stage, count down the numbers and see the players finally. They have been working towards this for so long, the entire split. And tonight's series pins old and new champions against each other. Ladies and gentlemen, join us in counting down towards the start of the EULCS Spring Finals.
down towards the bottom. Garden is going to just rain hell upon the faces of Splice. The G2 dynasty continues as they make their 5th final in a row.
It feels kind of natural to go into a final again. I'm there because I deserve to be there. I played against Reckless for 3 years now. Both of us are the face of our team. It's expected on us to carry.
This is a dream finals for us, and if we don't take it, then I'll be extremely disappointed. I think it's just our turn. G2 just has to step aside. The spring finals is ours.
It's just unbelievable that I never went to finals in the LCS, and this is the first time.
Oh, look at Yarden! It's the Yarden! The carry on the backline takes out 2. The Baron goes, but Comet's dead!
I felt the weight of the Fnatic legacy, and finding myself in that team are big shoes to fill.
I hope that I can show why I'm the best mid in Europe. I'm confident that we can close our games, and if they can't, then I think it's going to be a really fast series.
I'm coming from my 5th title right now, and they can't even stop me. They have no chance.
I'm going to smash him so hard that he's going to think that it's an international tournament.
If they ever want to win a split again, while I'm in this region, they have to win this split or they will not win it again.
I'm gonna make it count. I'm gonna stand there and lift the trophy again.
Welcome to the concourse of the Royal Arena in Copenhagen, Denmark. We're here in the calm before the storm, just minutes away from the spring split final. In fact, we are just meters away, because behind those doors, the players are waiting. Now, I'm not yet ready to open up. I'm not yet ready for you to meet the teams. Because first, we need to step inside the arena. First, we need to meet Copenhagen. Ladies and gentlemen of Denmark, in the Royal Arena, put your hands together for the Spring Split Finals! The title is once again up for grabs, and the representation of that is our trophy. To return the trophy to the podium, I would like to ask Ocelot, G2's owner, to return it. Four-time defending champion G2 Esports once again return the trophy. Let's look back at the previous winners. Fnatic finally win the Spring Splits! Fnatic are your European Split champions! Welcome to the G2 era! They are your Summer Split champions! Perks has led his team to victory! The Nexus is the focus, and this is the G2 dynasty! And for the first time in history, the 4th consecutive EU LCS title. G2 Esports are the best team in Europe. Copenhagen, I give to you your defending champion, G2 Esports! Challenging them in the finals for the championship title, it's Fnatic! Introducing G2's top laner, the Danish Wonder! For Fnatic, their rookie top laner, Bwipo! In the jungle for G2 is Europe's first blood king, Jankos! Copenhagen, let me introduce you to Fnatic's jungler, Broxah! In the mid, four-time defending EU LCS champion, Perks! And for Fnatic, on home soil, coming for the title, Denmark meets Caps! In the AD carries a battle for the best Swedish ADC, G2's representative, Björnen! And your summer split MVP for Fnatic, it's Reckless! Supporting G2 Esports, it's Wadid! For Fnatic, Hillesang! Coaching G2 on stage, it's Grabs! And leading Fnatic through picks and bans is Dylan Falco! Copenhagen, for the past 5 years and 10 splits, 9 times, Fnatic and G2 have hoisted the trophy, have laid their claim on the European LCS. And for the first time in history, they will battle for the title. Put your hands together for G2 and Fnatic. Let's make this a clean fight. Copenhagen, are you ready for the Spring Split Finals?
Still alive. Watch this AD carry jump around the fight. He flashes the wall. He's getting onto Comet. The curtain call is
That's a double.
He's dead. Yana jumps forward looking for the triple him as well. Perks takes it away. The carries of G2 do absolute work and shred through Splice. The G2 dynasty continues as they make their 5th final in a row.
Was in the pit, the Baron is going to be secured shortly. That's yes! It's not going to be secured. Broxah wins the smite fight. Vitality are getting wrecked, and Fnatic take a gigantic lead. It's taken 2.5 years. It's taken 5 splits. The Fnatic legacy of always making finals is finally coming true. And for the first time in 2 years, Fnatic advance to the finals. Over quick shot, Henry, joined at the cast race by Andrew Vedieste and Martin DeFicio Linger. Gentlemen, it is almost time for picks and bans.
Oh, I'm so excited, man. This is the dream matchup in the final. We have to go back to 2015, Fnatic versus Origin, since we last saw Fnatic in a big final, and now they're here again against G2 Esports.
And everybody wants that 5th game, Trevor.
Hell yeah.
So many excited fans here in Denmark. I cannot wait to kick this game off.
I do not believe we have had a more epic weekend in the making, with 5 games yesterday between Spice and Vitalis, potentially more to go. Now, we are going to dive into the matchup. Gentlemen, I want you to put your thinking caps on and tell me, how do each of these teams plan to win the game, starting with the draft?
Well, I think we got to look at the top lane. We've got to look at Wonder if you are G2 Esports. This guy has been loving carries recently. The Camille, the Gangplank, hell, even the Fiora.
And he's going to love the support of this crowd, that's for sure.
He's going to want to get it on his back. He's going to put G2 on his back. And he's going to look to see if he can carry through that top side of the map.
But if you go to the bottom lane, it's Fnatic favored. They have Reckless, the MVP, on their side. He should be able to outperform Yanin. So that actually means there's only one lane left, which is undecided right now.
Yeah, Caps versus Perks. This is one of the most anticipated matchups for so long. Whenever you see these two mid laners butt heads, you're guaranteed an exciting mid lane matchup. We already saw some great stuff yesterday from Niski and Jizuke, and now we get to see if Caps can take down the title holder.
What I love, gentlemen, is that we've got these obvious strengths in the top and bottom for the respective teams. G2 maybe stronger top, Fnatic stronger bottom, and then we've discussed the 2v2, the junglers and the mids, and how they get involved. The question I pose to you, will teams lead into their strengths, meaning G2 play top, or will they try to protect their weaknesses, meaning, for example, G2 play bot?
Well, we just heard from Youngbok, they're preparing both things on the side of Fnatic. They can either try and shut down Wonder, or they can try and ignore him and play around the other side. We have to see if that's the same for G2 Esports. I'm expecting them to focus on Wonder, put him on a carry if they can. And I think Fnatic with the first Camille ban, they're saying, yeah, we do expect you to play one of these carries, and we remove the first one.
So with Trundle taken off the board, you are expecting something like an early rotation of something like the Olaf, perhaps even the Skarner as well. We saw a lot of priority on it yesterday in our 3rd place decider. G2, by being red side, they're forced into this Swain ban, but also a respect ban in the Zyre.
Have to see G2 with the last ban here. Caitlyn is still left open. We know Reckless can play it, even though we haven't seen it that much from him during the actual split. Could be a choice for Fnatic, unless they're looking at something as like a Tahm Kench pick, which will be very valuable between the two teams.
Couple seconds left for that first pick priority. Obviously, junglers all taken out the pool, and it will be the Braum locked in for Hylissang.
Oh, they were watching a Splash yesterday, I guess, with Kissing early picking Braum every game. This is not something that should hurt G2 too much, because Vadidas definitely preferred the Tahm Kench whenever he had the chance to play it.
I also wonder here if Fnatic are hoping that G2 go for something like the Caitlyn, try and get that early lane dominance down in the bottom lane. We saw Ryze pretty much taken off the board throughout the semifinals and yesterday in the 3rd place decider, and now it's going to be in Perks' hands, one of his most comfortable champions from the regular season.
If you are Fnatic and to try and explain the first pick Braum, one of the things they do like is when Hylissang can try and make some plays. They play a lot of these comps where he's allowed to roam, he can then connect, a bit of CC onto one target, and it can single down one member. But Tahm Kench is here to try and counter that as much as possible. And the Ryze pick, we talked about mid lane being undecided. Ryze is one of the strongest picks in the current meta, especially if you play around him. But that's a unique AD carry for Reckless.
Unique indeed. Most played AD carry for Reckless in that Tristana, and I've heard so many people say when you get it, it's GG already.
Well, we'll have to see if G2 can handle it, given that looking at what's available right now, a lot of jungle bans, this could be an opportunity for G2 to lock in the Kha'Zix, but instead, they're looking for a little bit more engage in the Zac.
Trying to match as well against the Sejuani tankiness from both junglers, scaling on both sides, but Reckless Tristana, this is a pick a lot of teams ban away. It's actually the most banned champion against Fnatic in playoffs because, yeah, you don't want to deal with it. On G2's side, I think they're saying we know he's going to play it if it's open. We can draft around that. Strong scaling on their side. A lot of mobility from a Zac, and then of course Tahm Kench ulti plus Ryze ult. You can port your entire team from lane to lane trying to make plays while Reckless is scaling.
And now I wonder if G2 are going to look to try and get a bit of lane dominance of their own. Remember that in the early laning phase, Tristana can be pushed around. Champions like Jhin and Caitlyn are both stuff that Hjanen loves to play and could go for.
Yeah, and we saw Hjanen dominate on that Jhin earlier here in playoffs. There's a good chance he wants to grab it for himself. Synergizes nicely as well with things like Zac, who can jump in from long range, and you can pick people off.
And we talked about Wunder playing carries. Look at the 3 carries that have now been banned away. Camille, Fiora, and Gangplank. It feels like they're trying to pressure G2 onto something like a Sion so they can answer them with a choke.
And if Wunder's playing a tank, we might see Hjanen on a more scaling AD carry, where he becomes the one they actually play around in the late game. They already got the Tahm Kench to protect in the laning phase, and that's what we're getting now with this Jinx here. So they're simply saying, we realize there's a chance we have to play tank top, so we need Hjanen to be the big man.
Oh, interesting. The decision-making here from G2 will explore how they make that Jinx work. For Fnatic, how do they round out their team composition? We're going to see what Caps and Bwipo are going to play.
Well, right now they've got Engage with the Sejuani, and they have decent follow-up with the Braum as well. They're looking for something safe to go into the Azir. Talia could work here for Caps if he wants to try and bring a bit of wave clear and roaming pressure. The alternative, of course, is the Orianna, should he want a little bit more laning power.
I love this pick, and I especially love to see it in a game 1 if he locks it in, because if you win with Aurelion Sol, the enemy team has to respect it in every single pick and ban phase from here. But it's gonna be Karma mid lane for Caps instead.
Looks
Bit
like
of a change.
Yeah, Fnatic looking to play entirely around Reckless this game. They do still have decent push in the middle lane.
Gentlemen, I see 2 team compositions that seem pretty focused around their AD carries as one of the pivotal members in the team compositions.
And that's where initially we said Fnatic's bot lane should have the advantage. Let's see if someone like Hjanen can change that in the first game. Of course, there is Ryze versus Karma in the mid lane, a ton of early game damage on both sides, but Karma still, when it goes full late game, it's more about the utility she brings and a bit of burst damage up front.
But I'm looking at this G2 composition and I'm thinking Jankos is going to want to gank Perks. One of the big easy lane setups is in the middle lane. Looks like Caps isn't going to be running the cleanse. You do have the potential gank setup, especially with Zac coming from all these unique angles, the flash in from the Ryze as well. I see a lot of potential kill pressure, and maybe they want to put Caps in an uncomfortable situation.
I also saw Fnatic come in with a plan of remove carries from top lane, make it a tank v tank matchup. That favors Bwipo and Fnatic, because then Wunder is not the one G2 can play around. Tank v tank top means we look for the other lanes.
Oh, looking at the other lanes and the question mark of this mid lane matchup, Karma into Ryze. What a tense start to the EU LCS Spring Split Finals. Fnatic taking on G2. We'll see how the decision making works out in game. Just as a reminder to everybody at home, we will once again be running our POV stream. We'll get to in just a moment as Grabs and Delafalco shake hands for the first time of hopefully many throughout the course of the day. There's your team compositions once again. Guys, jump onto Twitter, let us know your thoughts, and check out twitch.tv/RiotGames2 if you want to check out the POV stream for G2 Perks.
Oh, that's going to be a fun one. In the middle lane, 4-time defending champion Perks, looking to make a 5th one here today. I know that Ocelot had a lot of confidence in his team in the dressing room earlier on today, and now we are getting into game 1.
We are indeed. Copenhagen, help me introduce game 1 of your Spring Split Finals. Ladies and gentlemen, let's set the scene. G2 versus Fnatic. All-time records are in favor of G2 Esports. 16 wins to 11. This is the first time they meet in a finals, and Deficio, we've had the pleasure of seeing these two organizations over many years, but this is the first time they meet in such a pivotal series.
Yeah, and a lot of people look at last year as a year where we would get Fnatic versus G2, but Fnatic never made it into the final. This year, however, whenever they play G2 Esports, they've won 2-0 in the regular season. Both games, funny enough, were with G2 winning early, but then Fnatic coming back late. This game here, there's a lot of focus now on especially the AD carries.
Yeah, because down in the bottom lane, Reckless, he has his comfort of Tristana. He's a guy that's willing to play and pick it. He's so confident in how he's able to execute it. And Hjanen, during the regular season, did not really show the strongest of performances. Coming into semifinals, he really did step up. We heard a lot of praise from the other members of G2 saying how much he was able to carry the team. And now they're both on hyper carries. Both these teams are going to rely on them to be the big damage threats later on.
And before we get to the point where the AD carries can take over team fights, we look towards mid. We saw there with the graphic, we said it already coming into it. This is the matchup that's undecided for us. We cannot predict straight away if Caps will beat Perkz or the other way around. A lot of it's gonna come down to Jankos and Broxah. Broxah in the semifinal camped the mid lane, killed Jizuke from Vitality so many times, and it was not something we've really seen before. I want to see if that's the playstyle again for Fnatic, because they got the early damage from Karma.
And I love the development that Broxah as a jungler has made over the last year, because you think back to when he initially joined Fnatic, he was this cool playmaker on champions like Lee Sin and Jarvan. He wasn't afraid to make those crazy plays, and over time, he kind of moved back from that, kind of filled this role of just being that supportive jungler. But recently, we've seen him grow into this, I can work with Caps, we can be an extremely strong duo, and it was a big part of their success in the semi-final.
It will indeed, and of course, if you want to see how Caps and Perkz do in that lane, check out the POV stream. Just one quick reminder, Riot Games 2. Heard a few complaints yesterday about being very grayscale. We'll see if that'll be any different today, because of course we've touched on that 2v2, and we'll see how Jankos will impact those lanes. Jankos definitely a standout player, first time in the finals, and already being a little bit invaded on. If you look at the minimap, Broxah sitting just behind him on the Grump, and he's going to be challenging. There's not a lot of support from Fnatic, though. You can see first to move was Wadid.
One of the big issues with Zac is he does use a lot of his own health to clear through the jungle, so you can always feel confident invading onto a Zac, knowing that you have that health advantage, and with Rekkles and Hylissang getting that early push, Broxah was able to get in, get a bit of vision, get that insight as to where Jankos was. Looks like he's going to go back to base and do his first buy.
Now, it is interesting we have so much scaling on both sides in the first game. Yesterday we had a lot of aggression, early compositions where junglers were ganking left and right. This one is tank versus tank in the jungle, tank versus tank in the top lane, and same for support. So there's a lot of focus on actually just kind of playing a little bit safer early and get a few items, get a few levels, except for just around mid. It seems to be the only lane where we could potentially get some 1v1 action.
And of course, playing the first game of a potential 5, feeling your opponents aren't playing the slightly, I'm going to use this term, and correct me if I'm wrong, slightly easier to execute team compositions, a little bit more linear than maybe some split pushing styles that we've seen in the past. It's a good way to break yourselves open into the game, and we'll see what Bwipo and Wonder can do as they will scale up and eventually become more impactful in the later stage.
You know, and it's interesting as well because I had an opportunity to chat with Bwipo a little bit last night, and he was telling me a little bit about all these top lane matchups and how confident he feels on champions like the Cho'Gath. And right now, with Wonder on that champion, they may be looking for a gank up top.
All right, Jankos, the First Blood King, looking to live up to his namesake. Stretching strike connects, will pull Bwipo back, that's very nice. Elastic slingshot comes in, gets the knockup, First Blood on the cards, Bwipo's gonna go down, and G2 strike first.
Wonder on this Cho'Gath here, he had the counter pick. Yes, he's on a tank, but he's still able to do very well in this early laning phase, because not only is he currently winning on CS, he had a lane that was pushing against him. Jankos timed that perfectly to appear on top side, and then they gank the young rookie from Fnatic.
It is so difficult for a Sion to play into this matchup. He cannot deal with all the sustain that Wonder's able to throw out, and as a result, he set up the lane nicely. They get this early kill. Jankos is the one that strikes first.
Exactly as expected for a man with that sort of title. I love that 8-1 win-loss for the Braum. For Hylissang, we'll talk about that in a second, but just a well-executed gank.
Now for Broxah, he invested vision towards the bot side. He wanted to keep an eye on where Jankos was, but for Jankos, he knew that there was little vision towards the top side. Bwipo was overextended, and it became an easy first play.
And I love the fact that he connects the Q and then he waits. The flash then comes out, and then he pulls his move and actually smacks them together, so suddenly Bwipo cannot escape. He ends up going down. That's important for G2, also just the mental edge. Bwipo is the young rookie, the guy replacing Source, who's sitting with his injury, unable to play, and it's the first time this man is stepping on a big stage. There's a lot of pressure on him, despite it being a Wonder favorite matchup from the get-go.
You know, and it's funny because when you talk to him, he says that there's little to no pressure on him. Because
there's always pressure.
He is the underdog. No one's expecting him to perform, so he can just play his style, he can do his thing, and he feels like a lot of the blame isn't going to fall on top of him, because when you're playing with Caps and Rekkles, you're not supposed to be the star anymore.
Now let's see what sort of counterplay Fnatic have on the cards. The root will connect onto Perkz. He's still got Cleanse and Flash available. Winter's Bite from Hylissang flies a little wide, and Perkz holds his nerve, realizes there's no threat, and easily walks away.
Rekkles left in the 1 versus 2. G2 aren't quite quick enough to find any kind of punish, and Jankos will end up going back to base. But this is something that you do often see a lot from Hylissang. He likes to roam around the map. DeFisher, you mentioned it in the draft. He is a playmaker, and he's definitely very confident on champions like the Braum. Very early on into the game, already looking for those roams.
Taking a look down at the bottom lane, we've actually not looked too much down here. It's been a bit of a farm fest. 60 CS for Reckless. He's got back to pick up his Berserker's Greaves. Hyunan's already picked up the BF Sword in that matchup, and small advantage for Hylissang and Reckless, but they're getting to that point where ultimates are available and some plays can be made, because I remember Hylissang from playoffs, his Braum was extremely aggressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing we can see from him. As long as the team can follow, it looks really, really good. Gotta see what Jankos is up to after successfully ganking the top lane once. For now, it is just pure vision and continue farming. We'll find a few more wards on his side, but Reckless Tristana is the one I actually want to talk about real quick. Because a lot of people are like, why is Reckless so good at Tristana? What is he doing that's so special? I mean, first of all, he's just extremely good at playing team fights, which is where Tristana can shine. Second of all, she has a jump. She can be very aggressive in her positioning, and he can use that to find an opening for the first kill that gets him a reset, and he can just pop off completely. And it's very hard to then stop him.
It certainly is, but he has to get to that point. And one of the things you can also praise Reckless for is, regardless on how bad the matchup is, he always seems to come out very healthy during the laning phase. You only have to look at his CSD record to identify that Tristana is typically a weak laning phase champion, but Reckless never makes it look like that.
And I want to see if Fnatic in this game want to actually do what they do sometimes with this Tristana, lane swap with it later. Let's see what happens here, junglers.
Oh, Broxah's going to get jumped on by the Realm Warp. Oh, beautiful ultimate! Stops Perkz the moment he arrives, and that's the mechanics that Broxah showed up with on the EU LCS stage. G2 do not find a second kill.
G2, they're trying to be proactive though, looking to punish Broxah as he's moving through his own half of the jungle. Realm Warp being used very early on, and unfortunately G2 are not able to find anything, so Fnatic continuing the stall. Remember, a lot of this composition revolves around Reckless. He is one of the main damage dealers. When you're on this Karma, you're going much more towards a poke support role rather than a big damage dealer like Ryze.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Karma players still build a ton of AP. It's not the old like Athene's Ardent Sensor rush instantly. It is like you get your tier, you fully stack it, you upgrade it, Death Cap comes in fairly quickly as well, and you get a ton of AP in the mid game. So your poke damage is insane, but as you highlighted, Vedius, once the actual fight breaks out, when it's 3 tanks and a supportive mid laner, yeah, it's about the AD carry.
And when you got Reckless on your team, you absolutely want it to be about him. All right, let's take a look. Jankos with another gank. Gets the Chilling Smite down. Stretching Strike connects once again. Pulling Caps backwards. There's the Let's Bounce. That's going to deliver Caps to the mid lane. Caps survives a hell of a long time. Caps escaped! How did he do that?
Caps actually gets out of that situation. It looked like such a well-executed gank from Jankos, but Caps survived.
I was convinced he was going to die 3 separate times. He's cheeky enough to even teleport back to the mid lane and even get some damage
Going
down
for a trade, Trevor.
Gets the root down.
Even gets the cleanse. He was worried because he saw Broxah coming in from the flank. He knew that if he didn't get out of this situation, he could be in dire straits. Caps, beautiful execution from him.
All the action early, it's Jankos setting it up from G2's side with the Zac. It's what we often see when Zac gets picked, doesn't get shut down in the early game. He's so active at finding different ways to appear in these lanes. I think Jankos, man, yeah, for sure, he was like, we got it. Double flash to try to finish. I think Caps just shielded himself in time to stay alive towards the end. So 2 big summoners blown on G2 side. Of course, the same for Caps.
So 10 minutes into the first game, G2 with a small gold lead, nothing to speak of. CS differences also negligible. Only Reckless with a small lead. He's picked himself up that BF sword after returning back to lane, and towers have not necessarily been chipped a whole lot, so we're definitely into this mid to late game team fight, team comp style.
But look at Fnatic, they've taken control over the bot side river. You would imagine that their initial goal is to go towards this Cloud Drake, an objective that if you get in the early game, does give you that extra bit of movement speed, makes these movements a little bit easier around the map.
What we typically see from Fnatic though, when Reckless gets a few items under his belt, is to start playing more towards his lane. Tristana is still one of the best at taking down early turrets. He has the attack speed to actually get a few hits off and then back away. We already saw Broxah down here, but he just recalled. If Caps can push in the mid lane, he can roam first. Perkz should always be able to match though with the Ryze ulti. So it makes it a little bit easier for G2 to defend against Fnatic's potential siege in the bottom lane.
I'm just keeping my eyes on what Jankos is up to. We talked a little bit in the draft about how he could look to set up a lot of ganks around the middle lane. So far he's found 1 successful gank, and given that there is no flash, I feel like a repeat gank in that area of the map would make sense. This time, I would expect Caps to not be able to get out.
We see one of the problems for Fnatic is warding around mid to protect him. Jankos is not spotted at the moment, coming from that top side. Caps is playing very safe. He's okay for now.
He didn't pull a trigger to Fischio. Jankos very active in the early game. We've seen multiple ganks while he's only secured 1 kill. There's a replay of the mechanics at the bottom of your screen. Just really well played.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the shield. It was used initially there. Karma gets also, I believe, the heal off of the W as well. And then just as they flash in, the shield just comes off cooldown once again. Good management of his abilities to get the most out of that situation.
Now, question. Didn't even see.
Oh, Broxer even body blocked. Holy,
Whoa.
that would have actually killed him as well.
Whether that was intentional or not.
We'll
doesn't
assume
matter.
it was
That
intentional.
Awesome. That was awesome. Broxer saving Caps' life. Now, I have a question for you, gentlemen. Broxer has been silent for 12 minutes on that Sejuani. His team is still even, 600 gold behind. That's not a whole lot to speak of. When does he start activating for Fnatic? I know we've talked about the Reckless 2-item spike. Is it really just that simple?
I think for him, if you look at G2's summoner spells, it is almost impossible to set up a gank of his own. There's cleanse in the mid lane, there's cleanse from the enemy support, and that's what can also eat his AD carry in case he's the one getting hit. So it's very difficult for Broxer to be active. His job is mainly just to keep up in farm and experience, and then try to get vision down to spot where Jankos is going. But that does give some control to G2 Esports at the moment.
And that means they get the dragon. There's no contest here. If you look at the vision from Fnatic, there's nothing to spot it out. So the first dragon of the finals, the Cloud secured amid some golf claps here in the Royal Arena, and Jankos has the potential of another gank, but there's some respect from Reckless and Hylissang. They back away.
This is a very classic game 1 of a final, where both teams are taking a little bit easy. No one is going for something completely crazy in the early game. Of course, also with scaling on both sides, the way you want to play these compositions is technically just farm up early on. The top laners are trading a little bit, but not a whole lot should happen from it, seeing as there's no junglers nearby.
So we're talking about scaling. We're heading into the mid game. Do you prefer one team scaling over another? To Fischio, what do you think?
Oh, I think with Tristana for Reckless on one side, but a Jinx on the other one, it gets very evenly matched. The problem, of course, for Fnatic is that Karma's own damage, because she only has one real big damage ability to use, is definitely not the same as a Ryze. But if Karma with her utility can make sure that someone like Reckless gets enough time to actually kill the front line of G2, then that might not matter at all. Jankos is trying again, though.
Yeah, a little bit opportunistic as Caps is able to use that movement speed to escape, throws down the shield and the E and clears out the wave. Still holding his own. I guess it comes down to playstyle then, because of course you've got the Feast on the side of G2, so they have a little bit of an advantage in that Baron pit.
Yeah, and also, just touching on that Feast away, we got to look at Hylissang in the middle lane. Once again, looking for another row.
All right, let's take a look. Perks has already sidestepped Hylissang's Winter's Bite, and both of these mid laners, man, they are not going to give up easy kills. It has to be earned, it has to be taken on this stage, because neither of them have made missteps just yet.
Look how immaculate the farm is as well. 14 minutes, 50 seconds, and we're already cresting 160 CS across all of the carries. But it's fascinating, you know, we are here in the final between both G2 and Fnatic, something that many fans were hoping for, and for a while we weren't able to get, but now it's here, and you just have to imagine the pressure that's on some of these shoulders, because for G2, something that Ocelot said at the beginning of the show was there's a lot of new players for G2 on their side. The first time they've made it to the final, Jankos' first final, he had that semi-final curse that he was dealing with for such a long time. Hjarnan and Wadid, the new bottom lane that were coming in for Sven and Mithy. So much is on the line for so many of these players to live up to G2's long championship record.
And I mean, Hjarnan stepped up last weekend. All split long was a little bit of a second fiddle to the rest of the team. It was Wonder and Perk show a lot of the time. But in the semi-finals, Hjarnan's Jhin, as you mentioned in Picks and Bans, and just his performance all series long, really exceptional. He's going to need another outstanding performance because of the seriousness of the matchup and, of course, his opponent.
So now we've just passed the 50-minute mark. You can see some of the main key items have been completed, and I feel like both teams are looking for a fight.
Well, they are indeed. Reckless is the one that starts it. He goes forward with that rocket jump. Hylissang splits up the team. He's already thrown down that Glacial Fissure. Let's bounce. Pulls back too. This is a bad fight for Fnatic. Hylissang's already down. Brox is running for his life, and he'll get dropped. It's a double kill for Hjarnan, raining down the rockets onto Fnatic as Reckless and Caps are running for for their lives. Jankos gets two, pulls them back with the stretching strike. Defensive flash from Caps, and G2 find another, the third of the fight. It's a whitewash, and G2 are crushing Fnatic.
Fnatic started this fight here. Reckless jumped in first, but then it was G2 reacting instantly, and they knew they could win it from the get-go. 2 kills now onto the Jinx. We just had a slow early game. Everyone just matching farm, but we talk about the scaling, we talk about a Jinx. She's now getting fed.
Now it's Hjarnan on Wadid that go up to clear out the control ward, but Fnatic are in a position where they think they can collapse. It's a 3-on-3 initially, but then look at the Rise ultimate and the TP coming in from the flank. G2 just react quicker, and Reckless is forced out of the fight from the get-go.
And also with Perkz matching with that Rise ult, we talked about that earlier, how he can just follow to one of the side lanes, and he's there instantly. And this Zac pick from Jankos as well, setting up so much CC. The ulti to pull back 2 members of Fnatic so they can't flash away to safety. So far, the Zac has been huge for G2 Esports.
And now that is a 3-0 fight for G2 Esports. They've gotten a very solid early game lead, and a lot of the gold is funneled into Hjarnan. Defisho, you mentioned it. Trevor, you were just talking so much about he is an individual that eyes are on. Hjarnan versus Reckless, the battle for the better Swede. So far, it's Hjarnan that has the advantage.
And let's see if we can keep it up, of course, because G2 have got that 2,000 gold lead. They've got a 4-kill advantage. But no towers have fallen, just that single dragon. The map is still wide open, and that is standing gold for both teams.
And we're just kind of waiting for another one, like the one we just saw here. Another big team fight, but both teams are fully committing with everything. Now, of course, the TPs will be on cooldown, so it might take a while, unless Jankos wants to do something. They have their winning bot lane with the Jinx. They're already on the way to pressure the turret. Fnatic looked for another pick, but Perkz had his flash.
Yeah, he did have to flash out of that situation. Always means that there's another potential gank opportunity. But while all that action was going on, Hjarnan was just beating his way down onto the turret. Will secure the first objective of the game in favor of G2. And now you would imagine they're moving up towards the top side, where we actually see both top laners having a bit of a back and forth.
Yeah, they're fighting a fight between 2 turrets, in fact. And Wonder might be in trouble as Broxah is leaning that way. But as it stands, the arena here in Copenhagen is being brought to a standstill. There's a lot of Fnatic fans here, and they're going to have to rally behind the squad, who are falling behind as we get to 20 minutes.
Now, the one thing I will say about G2's comp is they do have a lot of magic damage on their side with the Cho'Gath, the Zax, the Rise. You can see early magic resistance seems to be the name of the game for Fnatic, as Jankos looks for another gank.
All right, he's flashed in, uses the Let's Bounce. Realm Warp will deliver Perkz into the mid lane. Glacial Fissure buys some time from Hylissang. Now he's the man that's in trouble. That Unbreakable will eventually break when 4 members are running you down. Perkz gets his second of the game and turns the attention to the mid lane tower. There's no defense from Fnatic.
It's another play set up by Jankos. He's the one going aggressive. It looked like he was all alone, but then instantly, Tahm Kench ulti and Rise ulti, and 4 members of G2 show up in that mid lane. Hjarnan and the rest of the team, they're going straight towards the Rift Herald.
G2 utilizing both these globals to very quickly move from lane to lane and punish the slight mispositions that Fnatic are setting themselves up for. Hylissang gives away his life for his mid laners, and it will allow G2 to secure the Rift Herald.
Some of the big picks we looked at coming into the matchup was things like Rise and of course Tahm Kench for Wadid, because they offer this global here. Reckless is going all in.
Oh, Reckless is engaging once again. Jankos waiting on the sidelines, but look, Wonder is taking so long to go down. Glacial Prism will buy some time. Devour from Wadid keeps him alive to escape.
Fnatic are really trying to get something here. Reckless jumps forward again, but he's not strong enough yet to take down a tank. Let's see the play from before. This is a 1v2 initially, but this is why Rise and Tahm Kench are so good, because now you can send multiple members to the mid lane.
So easy to collapse. Good ulti there from Hylissang, but then he becomes the target. He does have his flash available, decides not to use it because he thinks that the collapse is going to come down regardless. It means he will still have that later if he wants to go in for one of those flashy plays that Hylissang loves to make.
And early we looked a little bit at the team fight set up between the 2 teams, as we often talk about with these big hyper carries on each side. It's all about killing the tanks first.
Yep.
When you have a Cho'Gath Feast on one side plus 2 damage dealers in Perkz and Hjarnan, who are very good at just killing a front target, that's going to be superior compared to Fnatic's comp, which is a lot more focused on Reckless alone, just trying to find one target to get that kill. And it's going to take longer for Reckless to kill a tank compared to G2.
And I feel like that if Fnatic want to be the ones to have favorable setups in these fights, they need to utilize the poke that Caps will have once he completes the death cap. Fisher, you talked about how you typically do see a lot of AP being built on these mid lane Karmas. If you don't utilize it before the fight, his team fight value is largely diminished.
Yeah, and I also think we might see an Ardent Sensor come in from him, even though it's not the pure AP build, just because he needs to buff up Reckless even more.
Of course.
So that is definitely a potential choice for Caps. That could be very smart.
All right, we'll keep our eyes on that itemization. Still have to finish that death cap, gentlemen. And while we're looking at the map, G2 using the Rift Herald very effectively, already taken the top tower. It's 3 towers to 1 in favor of G2. Nearly 4,000 gold lead for the defending champions. And they're off to a very strong start, led by Jankos' early game impact. And the question we had, gentlemen, will the teams be leaning into their strong side, playing around their weak side? For G2, pretty obvious answer for Jankos. I'll play all sides, because he ganked everywhere.
Now, what's interesting about this is when we had Reckless and Caps on PGL last week, something that they said was that in the past, G2 struggled to close out games. And it was often that G2 would draft these compositions where they'd have a carry top, they'd have the carry mid, and that they would find a lot of early game advantage because that's what their comp allowed them to get. But then they struggled to actually end things when their composition wasn't really designed for team fighting. This time around, G2, they actually have a good team fighting composition. They found themselves with an early game lead. And this time, I don't think Fnatic can just rely on the late game as they have done in the past versus G2 during the regular season.
Yeah, going to be very interesting to see the decision making because now the Baron is an objective. Keep your eyes on that mini-map as vision will become so important in setting up and playing around that objective. G2 Esports, they still maintain control right now.
Yeah, they're really far ahead in this game, also because their carries are the ones getting all the kills on their side. Wonder will struggle to battle against the cannon minion.
The most epic of all top lane battles.
Yeah, 2 banner of commands in the game already, both top laners. And actually, you know, you talked about that early season games, Vedia, so how G2 got ahead early and then Fnatic bounced back. Take a look at the gold graphs of exactly how that looks.
And as Vedia has highlighted already, G2 in these kind of games didn't have the superior late game against Fnatic. But it's different in this one. They have a Jinx on their side. We know Cho'Gath is so good at killing front lines in these big team fights. So G2 Esports are not going to get outscaled by Fnatic. And with them having this goal lead, as long as they play correctly, they shouldn't actually give Fnatic a chance to get back in the game.
That's the big question. Can they out-team fight Fnatic? Even though they have a pretty significant gold advantage at this point, they have a very solid composition. Fnatic, you can never underestimate them when you get into that 5v5 scenario.
Absolutely not, especially when Reckless is on Tristana. Taking a look at the items though, a little behind. Ayed, Shiv, and Zeal for Reckless. Going against the Hurricane and Rapid Fire Cannon for Hyanan. Void Staff picked up for Perks. So he's going to be hitting like a truck in these next team fights. You see the Realm Warp will deliver some problems for Bwipo, who has consistently been the target throughout the majority of this game already.
And G2 should get full mid lane control. They have the superior AD carry, they have Tahm Kench as well. You can sit there, save Hyanan if he's too aggressive, or use that Tahm Kench ulti now aggressively to the sides. So it's very hard for Fnatic to play the map. They actually have to just concede the side lanes against the Ryze and the Cho'Gath, and it becomes all about the Baron. G2, they're starting it now. Let's see if they want to turn for the fight.
Find out. Teleport's coming
they can just
in.
finish.
They're going to rush it. They're going to rush it.
Instant Smite is available. Baron is already secured. Brox is now in the pit, but he's left alone. Glacial Fisher comes down as Wadid is going low. Going to get knocked out by that seismic shove. Here comes
it's a big one.
Fnatic may have found the fight. Jankos is going low. Cell division not yet popped. Whippo's already killed the back line. Flash for the Reckless. Fnatic are chasing. They're trying to cuss G2. They've done it. Perks has got one back. This is a messy fight as Baron will only be on a few members. Jankos has escaped with his life and Perks will be looking to run down. Going to try to survive, but in a 3-on-1 it is a matter of time and your MVP will close it out with Hylissang.
What a huge fight for Fnatic. We were just talking about how you cannot afford to underestimate them in the 5v5, and G2, they were just grouped up in that Baron pit. It made it so easy for Fnatic to get the collapse, get the damage that they needed, and while they did not secure the Baron, they secured themselves 4 kills.
Well, let's see it one more time here. Perks' ult is not available, otherwise you normally kill the Baron and ult out with the Ryze and the entire team, but here it is now means they're stuck in the Baron pit, and look at the bottom of your screen. Caps and Reckless are completely untouched. The only members taking damage from Fnatic are the tanks in the front, and this certainly means that G2, despite being ahead in gold, cannot win the fight.
Oh, and then you're just setting up so nicely for Reckless. He had the pentakill in his eyes, and while he did not get the last hit, he was able to help his team secure the winning fight. Only a single member walks away with the Baron on G2.
And it's very big to highlight that before this Baron was started, Perkz used that Ryze ulti to try and catch out a Sion. A little bit too over-aggressive, wasn't even close to actually getting him. That meant it was on cooldown for when they rushed the Baron. Just think about it, they burn the Baron, they 5-man Ryze ult out, Fnatic never gets these kills.
Chasing the kill ends up hurting them, but G2, they've grouped up. Only one member with Baron, it's Jankos, 1-0-5 on that. Zac playing exceptionally well. The siege is on, and the tower has already fallen. Keep your eyes on the minimap. Wipo has got that unstoppable onslaught available, but not the greatest angle of entry.
He went to push out the bottom wave, hoping that that minion wave can take the tower as G2 just group up in mid. Fnatic don't feel confident to take the fight right now. 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the Baron. Fnatic could look for a fight, but Jankos is looking for one of his own.
That fight we had before here should be the most favored Fnatic fight we will get this game. One team is stuck in a Baron pit and they can't turn on your carries. That should not happen again. G2 are still in control, despite giving over some kills to the enemy AD carry. They're looking for another engage with Jankos.
Oh, the tension. The Alexis Jung shot. Jankos is not fired just yet.
This is apparently not bronze solo queue where you face check everything.
You've got
Top tier quality.
You've got to show respect as well, but also Jankos has to be smart about his engage, because while he can create that kind of a distance between himself and the enemy team, the rest of his team can't always follow up on that. So he has to make sure that everyone else from G2 can follow up if he gets that kind of an engage.
Definitely the case. I mean, G2, yes, they're still in the lead. They got the gold from Baron, which means they are close to 4,000 gold up. Almost exactly, in fact. But taking a look at itemization really quick. Quicksilver Sash for Reckless. Keep himself alive with his 3rd damage item and the Zeke's Convergence as well. Locket of Iron Solari, so there's some tools there. And as we crossed 30 minutes on the clock, you're starting to feel that ticking time bomb of Ryze plus Jinx.
I think a lot of AD carries would not go QSS here.
I agree.
You have a lot of protection around you, but I've seen Reckless do this before when he's on mobile AD carries, because it probably makes him feel more confident in playing aggressive and being in the front. So it's a defensive item built to allow him to be more aggressive. Jankos is going in though.
All right, Let's Bounce is available. He's going to get rooted down. Just use defensively. Jankos pulls nobody back. This is a good start for Fnatic. Hylissang jumps onto the front line using that shield. Some time. Yanin is down! Reckless dunks him! It's a double kill for Fnatic, and they've got the advantage.
Whippo comes up huge, gets a knock-up onto Hyanin, and the rest of Fnatic collapse. They have their eyes on the Infernal Drake, and they secure themselves another teamfight win.
Oh, Fnatic, that was a big one from them. It was even fighting, but we saw Reckless get a ton of time to hit the front end of G2 before we got any fire back from G2 Esports themselves, and suddenly it's Fnatic in control.
Gotta track what Wadid used his consume on, because that was gonna be the primary target to keep Hyanin alive. G2 ended up with a negative Baron power play as Fnatic have come back into this game strong.
G2, they were waiting for Yanin's flash to be ready, but it wasn't up for the fight. And then without the time catch there, because he devoured Wonder to try and make sure he stayed alive, it suddenly meant that Whippo with the big knock-up can actually destroy Yanin.
Just before that fight, Ardent Sensor also picked up by Cap, so all the tools to play into the Fnatic camp. That gold lead is dwindling. Gigantic crits onto Hyanin as the tower is now being focused. 4 towers to 4, and Fnatic are clawing this game back from the early game deficit they found themselves in.
You know, and it's funny because we talked about how G2 have this teamfight composition. They shouldn't fall prey to the mistakes of the past where they get these early leads and then they end up losing them. But let's keep our eyes on Wadid. You know, because he's going into the fight. The initiation starts from Jankos. The ulti from Brox actually lands onto him, but he thinks, oh no, I have to keep Wonder alive because he's getting chunked down by Reckless. But then he realizes, the actual carry that I need to protect ends up getting caught, and Fnatic are very quick to punish.
Gentlemen, can I just bring up a graphic we saw a little bit earlier that reminded me of how G2 and Fnatic games went.
And this is exactly what we were just about to talk about, right? The fact that G2 got this early lead, and in the past, their composition was a large reason as to why they ended up falling behind in the late game. But now, Fnatic are just finding these opportune fights and putting G2 in these situations that they're always the ones coming out behind.
But if you're G2 Esports, You can still mentally reset, tell yourself you have a great late game comp. You still have a Jinx on 4 fully completed items at 30 minutes. You can easily win the next few fights. Fnatic have gotten the advantage now, but that can swing right back to G2 Esports in the next team fight. Baron is spawning soon. We know with the Cho'Gath Feast, they can rush it down, either Rise ulti away then, or look to turn for the actual fight. We have to see in the next one, because we know if Reckless gets caught, or if he's not allowed to deal damage, Fnatic, they won't kill anyone.
Yeah, definitely the case. And looking at the vision setup for G2, there's a couple of wards actually pushed into Fnatic's territory, so a little bit of early vision is 10 seconds away from Baron. Thank you, observers, for highlighting that one. And G2 still playing defensive. It feels like Fnatic have had to play into the darkness so frequently because of the fact they played from behind from the early game, but they haven't made many mistakes. They haven't overstepped or been punished despite the lack of vision.
No, they've been the one punishing the small mistakes from G2. The lack of flash from Hjarnan, Wadid using his consume on Wonder to keep him alive, and then Hjarnan being slightly out of position, allowing Fnatic to get that punish down. Now they're going for a play in mid.
All right, Hellissang's going to use stand behind me. Jumps up, he hits the Unbreakable. Gigantic shield teleports in the back end from Guipo. Flame Choppers might buy some time. Jankos is already going low.
Hjarnan's dead!
Hjarnan is dead again with flash and heal available. Guipo's looking to find a little bit more. A flash forward from Hellissang. Gets a Winter's Bite as Wonder. Gets shot down in the back end. The kill picked up by Reckless. Wadid not going to get knocked up, but it doesn't matter. 3 kills to Fnatic.
And this is the worst timeline for G2 as Baron is alive. Reckless and the crew have their entire team alive, but their eyes are set on that middle inhibitor.
They got some minions coming. I think they want to go straight for the Nexus here. Reckless on Tristana can kill these turrets so fast. Another option is just mid inhib and Baron. But with 20 seconds still on Hjarnan, Wanda and Jankos even longer, they're looking for the finish.
The death timers are so high. Perks has to put on his blue suede dancing shoes to deal with 5 members of Fnatic. Wadid's going to help out for a little while longer, and Fnatic are chasing. It's Reckless that gets another, the 5th of the game. And despite losing early, despite falling behind, Fnatic fight back and strike first in the Spring Split Finals. They've not finished the game yet because Hjarnan and Perks, they're trying to
Hjarnan!
How did they do it? That was my win moment. But Hjarnan will not go quietly. He's flashed forward, continues to chase.
Gonna get the reset.
Looking for the rocket.
It's Cho'Gath!
Here comes Wanda. Caps gets taken out. It's Hjarnan. It's a triple kill, and we're not done.
Oh my god, G2! They're able to get the base defense. Hjarnan, when it mattered most, comes up clutch, and only Reckless walks away alive. Baron is up. Did G2 now try to go for the end?
They're going straight towards the mid lane at least.
No way.
Jankos is trying to stop a recall. He doesn't find Reckless, sadly, so Reckless is back in base.
Holy moly, G2, they're going to tank up the inhibitor turret. Keep your eyes on those death timers. 10 seconds.
They can't.
Reckless is already alive. G2 realize the folly and the braveness. They've peeled back for a safe Baron.
So they can still go for that Baron. Yeah, they have Feast available and everything, but it looked like it was over, and then Hjarnan shows up. Fnatic were splitting between hitting Champions and the Nexus, and this Jinx in the late game got enough time to get their first kill, and suddenly the Jinx pops off.
G2 now walk away with a 5-man Baron after getting a successful base defense. So at this point, Perks, you think he's going to die at this point. You think, oh no, there's nothing they can do, but just look at the damage coming out from Hjarnan, hitting onto the front line. He then changes his focus onto Reckless, and as Hillesang and Broxah try to defend him, they end up getting shut down.
Now we have to remember, both Nexus turrets died, as we just see Hjarnan here get that last kill onto Cap. So if you are G2, you're constantly thinking, okay, there is a chance they pop a Karma, speed up, and Fnatic just rushes into this base if Fnatic are caught, also if G2 are caught out of control. But for now, they are still sitting with the base behind them. Fnatic are starting the Infernal Drake, and G2, they're not contesting, they're not risking anything.
Gentlemen, 2 Infernal Drakes for a team composition that does have slightly less damage built in. Could help out, but just how much? It's 35 minutes on the clock. It's an even gold game, and there are super minions pushing into G2, but Baron empowered minions pushing towards Fnatic.
All right, let's see what Fnatic trying to do here. There's 1 outer turret left on the side of G2. They're currently hiding in the brush here with the tanks. I think Perks will get noticed. Fnatic will know exactly what's happening. Jankos checking. What a great first game. This is exactly what we wanted.
Please give me 5 of these. This is exactly what I want to shoutcast. Exactly what we want to see for a split final.
And to illustrate, this game could still go either way. The gold is dead even, but we're at a point where gold is going to mean less and less. The Baron is in favor of G2, but they do not feel confident enough to really leave their base when there is an exposed Nexus. The team fighting of Fnatic so far has come out on top because they've been the one finding those opportune fights. Crunching down on G2, who are trapped in the Baron pit, punishing the Flashless Hyanan in the middle lane. Can G2 finally find themselves a successful fight? One that doesn't involve their Nexus on the line.
For now, they're trying to stack even more armor because they know it's all about the Tristana hitting them in these fights here. Even Perks going towards Ninja Tappy. Chain Vest on his side. Both AD carries are leading the charge in terms of damage as expected. Of course, as we highlighted before here, the Karma does actually deal some serious damage with her poke. She's just not great in the really like the quick fights where it lasts like 5-6 seconds. She only gets off 1 Q. She doesn't really add anything else after that. But long, drawn-out fights with a lot of poking and continuing to buff up the team, she adds a ton of value.
And then, of course, there's the AoE shield as well. Mantra E, unstoppable onslaught from Wonder. He's going to be jumping in. Wonder not going to be the target just yet. Gets knocked up by Bwipo's. Bwipo's now running away. Stretching Strike going to be a little useless as the Glacial Prison buys some time. Still nobody caught. Extended long team fight. Exactly what Caps' Karma's looking for. But it was just enough to dissuade G2, push them back. This Baron buff has not equated to a lot.
No, G2 are just using it to defend for the time being. Just try and buy time for their inhibitor to respawn. Wait until they're in a state where they're in a better position to try and force some of these later fights.
Well, we keep seeing the team fights. Again, it's all about killing. Whatever meat shield is right in front of you. There's going to be a big blob on the side of G2 or a massive dinosaur, and you just hit him. You just try and kill him. And on the other side is this zombie dude, and of course, Roxa riding around on a wild animal. And it seems weird, but your job as an AD carry is just to kill whatever is right there.
You know, and we talked about how Wonder's ulti could be huge in helping that because it is the true damage. He will be able to chunk out a tank pretty significantly. But the other big thing in favor of Fnatic is the movement speed you also get from Caps allows Reckless to reposition and pretty much play as aggressively as he wants. Fisher, you talked so much about how he, as a player, loves to carry. He loves to be in these highlight moments. And when you have the support that you have from this Fnatic roster, you can't afford to just sit there and rest on your laurels because he's going to be looking to get into the backline and threaten whoever he can.
And I really like that Reckless is going Essence Reaver in this game. They're giving him more cooldown reduction on this AD carry just because so much of his damage comes from him correctly activating rapid fire. Just click the Q when you know you have a bunch of time to actually hit the tanks, and lowering that cooldown can be huge for Reckless specifically in terms of how he can actually kill a tank on G2.
Hyanan picking himself up the Blade of the Ruin King to help a little bit with the shredding through the front line. We'll see how much of an assist that will provide him with as G2 right now defending their base. Fnatic is a 5-man group. They have set up a slow push in the top lane. I believe the wave is pushing ever so slightly in favor of G2 towards the bot, but Fnatic are the ones with priority over them.
Oh, Fnatic all of a sudden have been in control. They've taken charge of game 1. Thanks to a series of team fights. If you looked at the first 20 minutes of gameplay, you think G2 have this game in the bag. If you look at the second 20 minutes of gameplay, you think Fnatic are going to have this game in the bag. And now as we get past 14 minutes in game 1, a big team fight, a vision blunder, a setup around Elder or Baron, which spawn in roughly the same time, is what is going to determine the victor of game 1 in our finals.
G2 still hiding around, hoping someone maybe face checks against the Cho'Gath. Not happening. G2 will look at this game and be a bit sad about some of the fights that happened 15-20 minutes ago where they actually were in control, but they were forcing and they were trying so hard to catch out someone like Hylissang. He's the Braum, he's the support. You end up overextending, going for him, and Fnatic punished them because of it. But because we had that big play at the Nexus from Hyanan, there's still time for G2 to win this game. Almost dead even in gold, double Infernal however for Fnatic's side.
And take a look at that 9th tower picked up by Fnatic. If you have just joined us, look at the minimap. Exposed Inhibitor and Nexus. G2 were able to defend their Nexus, much to my surprise, because of Hyanan respawning and helping out Perks. But G2 are dancing on a razor's edge as Fnatic continue to pressure them. Right, 58 seconds for Baron, 40 seconds for Elder. Some vision in G2's territory for Fnatic, but neither of them have set up significant steps towards either objective.
It's really important to keep an eye on the vision control because Fnatic, by having all 3 lanes pushed up, they could maintain control over G2's half of the map. But with all the vision that they've now restocked themselves with, they can look to get mid-priority and start playing around either Elder or Baron.
have to remember some of these AD carries in the late game. They can solo the Elder Drake. They have the lifesteal and the attack speed to just sit there, and while the rest of the team are keeping the other ones busy around mid, it is something we always have to look for when we have this stalemate around two big objectives. On the side of G2, they might look for something. Fnatic jumping in as well.
All right, Hyonin sold his boots in favor of that Phantom Dancer. Let's see what damage he can put down or if he's caught out. Glacial Prisoner teleports to the back end. Fnatic, they've already got the passive from Jankos. The fight's not done yet. Reckless is being trying. Focus down from Perks. Perks flashes away defensively. Reckless gets him. Turns onto the elephants. That's a double. He's not done yet. Firing away onto Wonder. Looking for more. Winter's bite tags Hyonin. Wonder survives for a few seconds longer. The bomb explodes. It's a triple. Has he
He's going for the penta.
The spring split MVP trying to find more. Doesn't want to go toe to toe. Shot back and forward.
He's going to kill him. That's the penta.
Going forward. The quadra. The penta kill for Reckless.
Reckless! What a hero for Fnatic. The superior AD carry comes out on top, and they're going for the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, in 42 minutes, Copenhagen, are you not entertained? Fnatic take game one.
And this game showed exactly why Reckless are the MVP of the spring split. The team builds a composition around him. They look towards him to carry the first game. He's dealing with a Jinx on the other side, a Riot as well. And yet, Reckless are able to consistently take down the enemy front line a lot faster than what G2 could do.
The difference in AD carry impact in that final fight was so huge. The fact that he had the support from the Karma as well, his positioning, the consistent damage that he was able to throw out was so much for Fnatic. In game one, they put the emphasis on him, and he delivered.
And this is the perfect start for Fnatic and Reckless himself, and it's a nightmare for G2 Esports. They played so well early on. I love the way Jankos was ganking on Zac. The use of Ryze ulti and Tahm Kentrel ulti. They were 5,000-6,000 gold ahead with a strong late game comp. But they could not execute the late game fights against Fnatic.
For the third time in 2018, G2 win the early game, Fnatic win the late game for different reasons this time round, of course. But something that is going to play on both of these teams' minds, this crowd is so behind Fnatic. We'll find out how Fnatic secure themselves that lead. And for more, let's head to the analyst desk.
Thank you very much, Trevor. What else could we have wanted from a game one in this final between Fnatic and G2 Esports? We had a base defense, we had a comeback, we had a freaking pentakill. So I just want to call that pentakill up once again. Let's take a look. Let's look at Reckless absolutely going off on Tristana. Guys, how does he do it? The resets.
He is just very good at Tristana, as we can see. But a lot of it came down to the fact that they had the Karma that kind of enabled them to have the better team fight, in my opinion. And we kind of just see what happens when you can't really reach Reckless in the fights. He just goes left and right with Tristana and kills everyone, and then it looks pretty.
I think it's also very tricky to play Zac against the Tristana that can jump, against the Braum that can just knock you up when you engage. I think Braum is also such a massive factor and definitely outscales the Tahm Kench later parts in the game because the shield blocks the AD damage, and AD damage is all that matters in fights like this.
Yeah, and Reckless feels like a fish out of water when he is in this position. Exactly, and he grabs the pentakill in game one, brought to you by Acer Predator. Now, before we go any further, let's just talk about kind of the momentum and the feeling for this player and for the Fnatic roster in this moment. He gets crowned the MVP just an hour before the match. His team is up against the four-time champions, and he gets a pentakill in game one.
Yeah,
amazing.
It must feel pretty good because the thing is, like, if you start out with an AD carry centric comp where you basically like put all the focus on your AD carry that just won the MVP, and he basically just comes out and gets not just a pentakill but also performs like really, really well in team fights, it's just really good momentum swing.
So this is what I want to ask you guys when we take a look at picks and bans for game one in just a second. Now, I want you guys to be honest and forgetting what you know about the pentakill. When you saw this comp coming out, a very AD carry centric comp with a utility mid laner for caps. What did you guys think?
I mean, at first it was a little bit questionable. It is kind of a comp where it's the Reckless show, and he showed up big time in the team fights. But I didn't like it too much, especially in the early game. You don't really have any lane to play to, and for me that is kind of what happened in the early game where G2 were the superior team.
But also the superior drafters in Game 1?
I think what I liked about Fnatic's draft was that they forced a tank versus tank matchup. Coming into the second wave of bans, they banned the Fiora, the GP, which basically forced a tank v tank. I'm also questioning the Karma a little bit, but I feel like the Fnatic comp is easy to execute because you have always something to fall back on. If you look at G2's comp, you need to snowball that game, play to the sidelines, use the Tamkins and the Rise to basically snowball the game, and they had the opportunity to do so.
Well, we have to praise G2 for that with this draft. They did show up early. We're going to take a look at the team fight that swung it entirely in their favor and amazing. You had some good words about Jankos coming into this game. He was everywhere.
Yeah, he was everywhere. And like this team fight, especially the way it started out, I'm not sure if he missed the E or if he just jumped behind him, but him landing up behind the enemy team meant that he could basically pull in 2 members, pull him back into his team. There was no way of flashing out. So basically a beautiful setup. He was really well aware of how to space within that team fight. But in general, like the whole early game was basically like Jankos taking over, and that's something that's so important for me to see because I've always questioned, even when I played against him, how active Jankos can actually be in those crucial moments. And when he's actually shown up to his first finals and actually able to put on a show to a certain extent for his team and be that main carry within the early game and the facilitator for his team is just really, really important for G2.
And what I really liked about it was the fact that he was kind of enabling Perkz. We saw him gank mid lane a lot. We saw him pressure mid lane, and that we saw Perkz having a good game on Rise. I just feel like they didn't necessarily know exactly how to execute the game.
Well, this is where I want to come back to what we identified as win conditions for either side before. Top lane was really a non-factor. Mid lane went in the favor of G2, but what would that bot lane possible discrepancy do? And we saw it in the team fights, we have to be honest. Now, I don't think you can pin that directly on the AD carries, but the way Fnatic played the team fights was fantastic.
So overall, I felt like in every team fight when basically G2 cornered themselves almost in the kind of way where, like especially here we can see they start Nash, they obviously get it because they have the choke up, but they put themselves in such an unfavorable spot that first of all, Hjorn is not able to hit anyone perfectly. He's not in position. Rise has to keep kiting back without hitting anyone, gets a lucky kill in the end, but overall the amount of positional mistakes that G2 put themselves in was unfavorable for Hjorn, and I do have to call out that I cannot believe that in a game where it's all about the AD carry, you don't build items for him whatsoever. Like the Zeke's convergence has to come out in a game like this because Hjorn was the main factor in those team fights and he wasn't able to play.
It seemed like they were banking on the Perkz insurance maybe.
Oh, maybe. But I think the biggest issue here is that they are forcing the Baron because their composition is about playing the split push game. They have a weaker grouped composition. The enemy team is behind on gold. Rise is going to beat everyone 1v1 on side. Choga gets Prior against the Sion. And in mid lane, you have the Jinx that is ahead of the Tristana with one-shot the wave and Prior with Tam. Means that you want to outnumber the enemy, which you can. But they forced the Baron, put Fnatic in a position where they can group as 5 and put all these champions, the Braum, the Karma, in a 5v5 fight, exactly where they want to be. So I felt like they gave Fnatic the way back in.
And this is a bit worrying for me because if we look at the regular season spring split, Fnatic is 2-0 over G2. And in both those games, they were behind and came back, and G2 wasn't able to close. So we're going to have to see how that evolves because that could be quite a trauma for G2 Esports. But 5 games, possibly only game 1. And if we know G2 Esports, they very often lose game 1 in a series. So what are we looking at going into the next game? They are now on blue side. G2, what's their priority?
I think something to consider. I was surprised that they didn't prepare a Caitlyn into Tristana because I think if you haven't done that, you shouldn't let go of the Tristana. Another thing is also consider picking the matchup for top lane early on, so it is something that can snowball because this time around we had the early kill on top. Nothing happened with it because it's potato versus potato.
I also just want to talk about, we wouldn't actually talk about how G2 should adapt if they just closed out the game properly because they actually had I think a 5k gold lead in the mid game, and if they just execute their 1-3-1 and just play to that condition, I think they had a completely fine game, so I don't think they should change too much.
Yeah, I kind of wish they would just keep up this controlled aggression that they showed in the early game. Like, they don't have to change up too much in the pick ban. I think going for the Zac, going for something that facilitates a lot of aggression within the early game, like a lot of plays, is really important. So I do think they should just stick to the guns right now and do what they did in game 1.
Well, we will see. We don't want to see too many changes from G2. We're going to go in into game 2 quite soon. It's been over 2 years since Fnatic last had an EU LCS title. We will see what they can do and if they can extend their lead after this short break.
Copenhagen, help me introduce game 1 of your spring split finals. G2 versus Fnatic. Stretching strike connects once again, pulling Caps backwards. There's the let's bounce. That's going to deliver Caps to the mid lane. Caps survives a hell of a long time. Caps escaped. How did he do that? Kill Flag's already down. Brox is running for his life and he'll get dropped. It's a double kill for Hyonin, raining down the rockets onto Fnatic as Reckless and Caps are running for